We are on week 87 of our study of the Word becoming flesh, searching for the heart of Jesus. I don't have any idea that we're halfway through yet. So, without making any promises, I anticipate that we might be close to finish with this by the time I turn 85. So, how many of you have got a picture of Jesus in your house or in your billfold or on your phone? No, I mean a real picture.
Well, it's a picture, but it's not.
Oh. Well, I found another one that I hadn't seen before. It's not quite 2,000 years old, but it's over 1,000 years old. So we're back halfway to Jesus anyway. This is a coin that was found in the area of Constantinople in Turkey. It's dated somewhere around the 900s. So still not a rendering by someone who actually saw Jesus, but a lot closer than we are. He's holding a book. I don't know if you can tell. I'm not sure what the book is. It's still a little bit too early for it to be the King James Version, but not much.
Hope he's put my name in.
Lloyd says he hopes his name's in it. So if that's the Lamb's Book of Life that he's holding, that would be a good one to have your name in, Lloyd. Anyway, I thought that was interesting. I don't have any idea what something like that would be valued. I would think it would have a fair amount of value, though. All right, so we left off in Mark 6. Jesus left Capernaum, went to his hometown, Nazareth, accompanied by his disciples. When Sabbath came, he began to teach in the synagogues, and many who heard him were amazed. Where did this man get these things, they asked? What is this wisdom that has been given to him? What are these remarkable miracles he's performing? Isn't it the carpenter or the builder? Isn't this Mary's son and the brother of James, Joseph, Judas, and Simon? Aren't his sisters here with us? The word there, the Greek word there for brother is the word brother. It's not the word cousin. And of course, if you know anything about the Catholic doctrine, they can't accept Jesus as having actual flesh and blood siblings, and still have Mary, a perpetual virgin. So they have changed the word brother to cousin and say these were not actually brothers and sisters of his; these were cousins of his. But they have to do damage to the Greek in order to come up with that. And they took offense at him. Why were they offended? Why would they be offended at Jesus? Now remember, where are we? We're in Nazareth. What's Nazareth? Well, this is a town where he grew up in. This is a town where he learned to crawl and to walk and to go to Sunday or Saturday synagogue, and where he worked in the trade of his father, Joseph, his earthly father, Joseph. So why were they offended? Some ideas. These are some I came up with. Maybe you have some others. Familiarity. We are more impressed with somebody who we only know by reputation than somebody we know by daily converse. Somebody said an expert is someone who lives at least 200 miles away. I don't know if that's true or not, but that kind of has some validity, I think. They knew him from his childhood. They just weren't impressed with him because of that. I think they were offended at him because he's being presented as the coming Messiah, and that doesn't fit their mold by any stretch of the imagination. They're looking for somebody coming in on a white charger and forming an army and overthrowing the Roman people who were inhabiting the land. Maybe there was some local jealousy, I don't know. Jesus was doing great things in Capernaum and other places, but not in Nazareth. And we'll find out more about that. Perhaps they felt overlooked or deprived of blessings that others were receiving. But more likely it's just that this was a snotty-nosed kid that grew up next door, and why does he think he's better than I am? Any other ideas on why they might have been offended with him? He was always challenging the status quo. His teachings challenged the established social order and religious authority of the community. He was disrupting tradition. His message of forgiveness, love, and acceptance of outcasts went against their norms. They were a very closed society. And the idea that Jesus would even go through Samaria would be offensive to them. Maybe those are some of the reasons that they took offense at him, and probably others. Jesus said to them, "A prophet is not without honor except in his own town, among his relatives, and in his own home." He could not do any miracles there except lay his hands on a few sick people and heal them. He was amazed at their lack of faith. That's always an interesting passage to me, and I don't have a good explanation for it. But why did their lack of faith make it harder or impossible for Jesus to heal many in Nazareth? And yet he did heal some. It's just a little ambiguous to me. I don't resonate with it. But anybody have any comments on that? Why that it would be? It says impossible, but it wasn't impossible. He did heal some, but difficult for him because of their lack of faith. It's a little bit weird. We have many instances of people being healed that had no faith.
I think that that's probably a little bit of a maybe not mistranslation, but not really capturing the thought, because Jesus could do whatever that he could have healed everybody there. That wasn't the point. The point was he was doing that to show the power of God, and he was doing that to people who demonstrated that they had faith in God. He wasn't doing it just, I'm going to go heal you today, so I'm going to show myself off. He was doing it as an affirmation of God and as an affirmation of their faith.
That makes as good a sense as any, because it's really a bit strange to me.
The only thing I can think of is them hearing all of the things that others had said he had been doing all around, and the way we feel about people in our community, all the things. Well, if he's doing that, why aren't we special? And not anything about faith. It's like, why aren't we special? This is where he grew up. He ought to have all of us at the top of his deal. If he's doing something good for somebody, he ought to do it first to us, because this is where he grew up.
Yeah. Feeling slighted or jealous or whatever. Yeah. Do you agree that a prophet is not without honor except in his own hometown, his own country? You kind of have that impression too?
The way I'm reading that too is it's not a matter of whether or not it's not saying that Jesus wasn't capable of doing healing at that point. It was the fact that the people's lack of faith kept him from doing it. That's all.
Yeah, and the conundrum is that some of them he did heal. and some he didn't. And the wording of it is, and I went back and looked at that real closely to see if any of that, maybe it was in the word could not, because the text says he could not. And that's what it says. But like David said, he's God. He can do anything he wants to. So that's part of the conundrum for me is that wording of it.
Well, maybe a little amplification on what I was trying to say. Jesus was God in the flesh, but he also said that he followed whatever God was telling him to do. For instance, when he went and healed the man that had been there by the pool at Siloam, it was the pool of Siloam. Anyway, the man had been there for, 30-something years,
Bethesda.
and he never was able to get down into the pool. Well, Jesus only healed one person that day. The point was only one was healed at a time at the pool. I mean, he could have probably healed everybody that was in that crowd, but he did that because he was following after the pattern that God gave him. And again, he was not able to do it because God was directing him to the people that were having a faith response.
Okay. Well, it certainly is an amplification of the idea and the importance of faith in association with healing.
He healed your lesson. He held the thing, and he helped him, and he didn't have to do that.
Right.
Here you go.
Thank you. Well, just some thoughts. We talked about this already. There were some that he did heal, so it wasn't that he didn't have the power, but like you mentioned, there is the influence of what God wanted him to do and the demonstration of faith. Many times Jesus' miracles, the faith was not on the part of the one being healed, but rather the faith of someone else. We've had several instances of that. In some cases, it was solely because he wanted to, as with the raising of the son of the widow of Nain. There was no faith involved in that. He didn't even know these people. Nobody asked him to do it. He just came by and saw it and saw a need and said, I want to do it. And he did it. He raised the dead. So it's just the way that Mark worded that's kind of peculiar to me. Yes, ma'am.
More than 1, 2, or 3 times in Scripture, Jesus often says that he does what his Father commands him to do, and that he does nothing that is not from his Father. So we have to know that he's not this renegade God that goes out and does everything. And the example is there that he follows what God commands and God's teaching. And he says, it's the work within me. I am doing this because it's the work of my Father. So that's the example for us, that we follow his commands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much exactly what David said also. All right, so Jesus went through all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom and healing every disease and sickness. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. That's kind of an insult. They had rabbis and scribes and Pharisees on every corner, and Jesus says there are a bunch of people out here like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field. Then we come to Matthew 10, and this is a really interesting and in many ways challenging chapter. And we'll be camped here for a little while. Jesus called his 12 disciples to him and gave them authority to drive out impure spirits and to heal every disease and sickness. These are the names of the 12 apostles. First, Simon, who's called Peter, his brother Andrew, James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John, Philip and Bartholomew, Thomas and Matthew the tax collector, James the son of Alphaeus, and Thaddeus, Simon the Zealot, and Judas Iscariot, who betrayed him. And we've talked about this in the past, but I think it probably bears repeating as a reminder. In the culture of the day, all of the young children, at least most of the young children, at the age of, 5 or 6, would begin Sabbath school. They would go to a synagogue where a rabbi would teach them how to read and write and do simple math. And they would learn to read and write using the Torah. And the young boys would pretty much commit to memory the Torah until they got up to about the age of 12, to their bar mitzvah age. The girls would pretty much memorize, or at least paraphrase, the Psalms. And that was available to essentially any of the Hebrew children there in Israel. When they got to the age of 12 or 13, their bar mitzvah age, most of them, almost all of them, and all of the girls would go into the family trade, whatever that was. They would apprentice with their father, and the boys would, and become wage earners. A few who had done really well in school, the cream of the crop, would continue on with their education with the rabbi, and they would begin to study and memorize the rest of Hebrew Scripture, all of the prophets, all of the writings. And that would continue on for a while. And then, while they were still in their late teens, the best of the best, the smartest of the smartest, who chose to do so, would go and seek out a rabbi and say, "Rabbi, I want to be like you." And the rabbi would quiz them, test them, maybe give them a time of trial. And he would either select them to be a part of his Talmudim, his disciples, or not. And if he chose them, then they would take on the yoke of that rabbi, the teaching, the interpretation of that rabbi. That rabbi might be a rabbi of the school of Gamaliel, to whom Paul went, or of the school of Shammai, or the school of Hillel. These were three of the maybe 4 or 5 Shemitah rabbis in Israel in Jesus' day. And they would focus on interpreting Hebrew Scripture with the yoke, or with the worldview, if you will, the paradigm of that particular rabbi. Jesus comes as a rabbi. A rabbi is someone who has a following. He has a following of people in general, and he has a following of Talmudim, who are these select group that take up residence with him and walk in his footsteps every day and embrace his yoke. What's so radically different about Jesus, and you know this, is none of these guys came to Jesus and said, "Jesus, I want to be like you." None of these guys had finished 18 years of rabbinical school. None of these were the cream of the crop, the best of the best. These were people who Jesus specifically went to and said, "Come follow me." Radically different. Now we've come to a place here in our text where he is sending these 12 men out on what's sometimes called the limited commission. And it's recorded in all three of the synoptic gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Mark and Luke just have a sentence or two, a verse or two. Matthew has a whole chapter of this discourse that he has with them as he is preparing to send them out. Here's a picture of the 12. Can you put the names, can you identify them with the names? Oh, wait a minute. These are the 12 apostles of the Latter-day Saints Church, the Mormon Church. Their headquarters is in Salt Lake City. That's not Jesus' 12. I'm sorry, I'm mistaken. Forget that. They probably look a little bit more like this. These 12 Jesus sent out, two by two.
Village that is rapidly growing.
I'm sorry, it jumped ahead of me. Let's go ahead and get there.
Those are people who followed us from the mount.
Can you
We're now waiting.
Can you
for more.
start that over? I don't know why it went. I either double clicked it or something.
Suspicions of Rome. In fact,
Let me do this
he
first.
informed me just this
These
morning
12 Jesus sent out two by two
members of his
with the
former
following
order
instructions. Do not go among the Gentiles or enter any town of the Samaritans. Go rather to the lost sheep of Israel. As you go, proclaim this message: the kingdom of heaven has come near. Now, in Matthew's text, that two by two is not there. It's in the Mark text only. Going to the lost sheep of Israel, proclaiming the kingdom of heaven has come near. That's all we have in basically Mark and Luke, is this idea of going, and it's over. But here's 12 men from radically different cultures or paradigms, points of view, backgrounds. Matthew, a tax collector, hated by everybody. Simon, a zealot, who wants to lead an insurrection against Rome and kill them, and kill any Jew that doesn't agree with him. Several fishers, people who made a living fishing. A very, very strange group. Now, if you're Jesus and you got these 12 men sitting around a table, and you're going to send them out two by two, they're going to be out there living together in close harmony and close union for a number of days or weeks or months. How do you pair them? How do you pair them? And that's the background of what they've done with this particular element in the chosen. I just find it really interesting because, the Gospels are so compact. Everything is a Reader's Digest version of things. But what's the rest of the story? And let's just imagine this morning what it was like when these apostles, fishermen, tax collectors, whatever, all of a sudden they're trying to figure out, why am I here? What is this all about? None of it's making sense to me. And now Jesus says, hey guys, guess what? You're getting ready to go on a mission trip. A what? A mission trip. You're going to tell everybody about the kingdom of heaven. Oh, by the way, don't take your sword. Don't take your money belt. Don't take any extra clothes. And you may not be really well received, but find somebody who will let you stay there. How are these guys reacting to that? Is this what we signed up for? I don't know if I read this in the contract or not. And now he's going to start putting them together. And notice how it all plays out. And when you hear him talking about Z, that's Simon the Zealot. Okay, so just that little bit of preliminary to help you with the understanding. All right, let's see if we can get this up now. Add a little context to it. Any thoughts? I don't know how it happened, but it could have been pretty close to that. It would certainly be just like Jesus to put Simon Zealot and Matthew together. Well, we're going to begin next week, not next week, but next year, Lord willing, to go through and unpack this conversation that Jesus is having here with these 12 men as he commissions them and assigns them to go out. And there's some really interesting and challenging things that he has to say in that conversation with them, and we'll see what we can gather from that when we come back from the holidays. Hope all of you have a most wonderful and safe and healthy holiday season. If you're traveling, travel in safety, and enjoy time with family and friends. And God bless you. Have a wonderful, God-blessed week.